Hello and welcome to Into the Woods with Holly Wharton. This podcast has evolved over the 5+ years since it first launched. From now on, I'm going to be talking about deepening your connection with yourself, taking inspired action, and really trusting yourself and your intuition. And also mindset, of course, but mindset of all kinds, not just business mindset. I think. Things are changing for me, as you may have noticed if you've been following me online or listening to this podcast, so anything goes here. I hope you stay along for the ride. Thank you so much for joining us today, and now let's get into this week's episode. Hello and welcome to the Into the Woods podcast, episode 284. This is your host, Holly Wharton, and I'm back with a different kind of episode. So I think I told you last week that I would be having another solo episode this week, but I've decided to slot this conversation into today's episode, which is the last episode of 2018. It is New Year's Eve. If you're listening to this day, it comes out. And I thought this was the perfect topic to kind of help us on our path, on our journey into the new year, which of course I've been talking about the new year ever since Samhain, because one thing is the pagan new year, one thing is the actual new year according to the calendar that we all know and love and use on a regular basis. So this topic is something that was proposed to me by my guest, Esther Lemmens. Esther is a visual arts lover, book and word addict, course junkie, ethical eco-warrior, organic foodie, green tea connoisseur, holistic health geek, and crazy cat lady. She has a zest for life and also a zest for graphic design. She's a visual brand consultant and graphic designer with almost 20 years experience in design and creative artworking. She helps unconventional entrepreneurs make their branding more recognizable and memorable so that they attract more of their ideal clients. She's a natural improver. She loves making things look better and work more efficiently. She really enjoys getting into the details. So Esther approached me with an idea of a topic of conversation that we could have for the podcast. So it's kind of related to some things that I've talked about in the past, but it kind of brings together a bunch of little topics into kind of one bigger topic. And this is something that I think is really, really important. It's been something that's kind of been top of the mind for me lately. And it's about kind of finding our way to express ourselves in the world and how to do it. And you've heard my journey over the past 5.5 years with this podcast, but specifically within the last year, where I've really been kind of moving away from the mindset work and more towards expressing myself through my writing. So that's been a massive journey for me, and I think our journey to finding our way of expressing ourselves it's not a done thing. It's not like you find your one thing and then you do it for your entire life. It's absolutely a journey, and it evolves, and you're going to find different ways of expressing yourself, and you're going to perhaps shift the way you express yourself. But this is, I think, at the core of what our life purpose is, at the core of how we can live a fulfilling life, do something meaningful in the world. And I think those of us who have reached a point of dissatisfaction in life, where we feel like there must be something more, but we don't know what the heck it is, today's conversation is going to help with that. And even if you feel like you have found your way of expressing yourself or of spreading your message to the world, again, that's something that's probably going to be refined at some point as you grow and as you change as an individual. So I'm really excited to share this conversation with you. I think it's really juicy. I think it's really interesting and useful. So here's what you'll learn. We talk about why we need to express ourselves and all the different ways there are of doing it. Because it's not just about what you're going to do for your business or your career. There's so much more to it. We discuss why it's so important to find our own unique way of expressing ourselves. We talk about the Japanese concept of ikigai and how that fits into the concept of life purpose. We discuss how to know when something is a hobby and when it's meant to be a business or career, because both of those are ways of expressing yourself. We discuss what to do with our ikigai or our purpose once we know what it is. We talk about why this is a journey of both self-discovery and self-creation and how to balance the two. We discuss what are blocks and why they come up along our journey. We discuss how to get unstuck when you're not making progress, and how there are 4 different levels or areas that you need to evaluate when you're trying to get unstuck. And I had kind of a big aha moment during this conversation when Esther was talking about the 4th area of kind of this ikigai or life purpose that you need to focus on when you're looking at getting unstuck and finding your path and finding your way of expressing yourself. So again, I think this is a really juicy and interesting conversation, and I really hope that you find it useful. So without further ado, here is our conversation. Hey Esther, how are you?
Hey Holly, I'm well, thank you. How are you?
Good. I'm really looking forward to our conversation today. This is something that we've been kind of going back and forth on for, I don't know, a few weeks now. And I'm looking forward to sharing this with people. It kind of touches on some things that have been covered in the podcast and brings them together in a whole new thing. So we're talking about like expressing ourselves in the world and why that's so important and how to deal with the stuff that comes up along the way. So let's start out by saying, or asking the question, like, why do we need to express ourselves in the world? Like, why is this an important thing?
I think it's something that is innate to everyone. I think everyone has that desire. And I think, I don't know, that's a bit of a theory of mine, but I think that's not the main reason. But this may be one reason why people have families. You know, that it's a way of expressing who you are and bringing up children with certain values and passing things on in the world and leaving a legacy and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, for me, I don't have children. I have never really wanted any, and it's never really happened to me either. So I've never had to make any decisions about it in that way. But I do feel like you don't have to have a family to express yourself or to leave a legacy even.
Yeah.
So I like the idea of doing that in a different way. I know lots of people, especially lots of women, maybe my age, and they have decided not to have families. Thought, you know, there's other things I want to do with my life. So yeah, I think that's when that comes in even more. Yeah. It's just the desire to do something meaningful or to express your purpose in some way, figuring out what that is first, obviously. But yeah, so that's kind of how I see it. How about you?
I really like that you brought up the whole family thing because as a fellow child-free person, that's...
Mother of cats.
Yeah. Mother of cats, yes, as my husband says. As a mother of cats, they are my legacy, and I'm hoping that we'll carry on with my tradition. No, I've been so business-focused for the last, I don't know, since, God, almost 20 years of my life. And now focusing on my writing. So my writing now is kind of my primary way of expressing myself along with this podcast. But I think it's really important what you said about the family thing, because I think there are so many ways to express ourselves. So it could be through writing, speaking, crafts, projects like art, families. There's so many different ways. So I think it's very easy to make this a very kind of life purposey, business focused episode, but I think it's really important for people to remember, like, there's so many ways you can express yourself in the world and find your thing.
Definitely. Yeah.
And this is something that it's taken me forever to like get to the point on my path where I realized that writing is my primary way of expressing myself, again, along with this podcast, which I love. But why do you think it's so important to find your own way of expressing yourself? Because there's so many options.
Definitely. I think society is just sort of structured in a certain way, and it's kind of like, you know, this is what people do and this is how things work and all that. And I think there's more and more people thinking, you know what, there must be more to life. And then part of them, I think, they feel bad for feeling that way. Some people might even have families and think, oh my God, there must be more to life, and then feel horrifically guilty for even, you know, the thought coming into their heads. But I think it's just innate in us. We have this urge to this sort of, I think it's very primal almost. Maybe in the old days when you're running away from saber-toothed tigers, you know, expressing yourself was not the main priority, but kind of, I hope you know what I mean.
Yeah,
I think it is very built in, I think. Yeah, it's part of the purpose and our reason for being and all that. Yeah.
And I think you have a really good point about the fact that we are able to have these thoughts and be concerned about our life purpose and expressing ourselves because our basic needs are met. I mean, most of us, most of the people listening to this podcast, they've got shelter, we've got food, we've got, you know, all the basics. And so we can focus on this problem, this issue of how am I going to express myself in the world?
Yeah.
And, I really wish kind of had access to these concepts and conversations at a much younger age, because it really wasn't until not that long ago that I started, about 10 years ago, maybe, that I started thinking about this. Whereas before it was always like, what am I going to do for a career? What am I going to do for a business? But I wasn't really thinking of it in terms of how am I going to put my essence out into the world and express myself and spread my message and leave my legacy. And we're very much, and I don't have kids, so I don't know what school is like these days, but it was always like, what are you going to go to college to study? What's your career going to be? Like, it was very like education and career focused. And I think there's so much more to it than that.
Absolutely. And I think there's more and more dissatisfaction with it. And that expresses itself in different ways. People become resentful even of some of the good things in their lives. And that's really sad. And I think if you figure out what your purpose is and find a way to release that and express that, then that can make everything else more harmonious around you. Whether you have a job or whether you have a family or not, whether you express yourself in running your own business. Some people run their own business for a while, find it's not for them. They go back to employment. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not like you failed or anything. Yeah. But I think the whole, even the whole entrepreneurial thing at the moment is more like, you have to aim for a certain amount of money each month. Otherwise, you failed by default and all that stuff. I mean, it's becoming a bit less. I think people are starting to see through that now, which is really good. But yeah, it's been a very hustle kind of environment, hasn't it, for a long time, I think.
Yeah, it absolutely has. And I was just listening to a podcast the other day, and this ad came on for another podcast, and I forget what it was called, but it was something about the hustle. And it was like how today's, top entrepreneurs have hustled their way to the top. And I was just like, well, I won't be listening to that one, will I?
Not quite, no. Good old Gary Vee, hey?
Yeah.
I do like Gary Vee. I quite like as this sort of no nonsense thing, and I mean I enjoy a good swear every now and then, it sort of helps me express myself, so I kind of like that about him. But it's like, no, I don't live for this. I live for my own, I don't know, it's not like a 16-hour work day. That's not what I live for. If some people do, and if it makes them completely happy, then that's fair enough. That's good for them. But it's not how I want to do things.
Exactly.
Really.
And so there's also the issue of how your passion, how your purpose, how your way of expressing yourself fits into the lifestyle that you want to live. So for some people, I'm sure they want to be out there like, blah, like sharing their thing with the world, 16 hours a day, 7 days a week. And I've been there. I've done that, not necessarily because that was a conscious choice, but I just kind of found myself swept up in that because of the business partner I had at the time. That was not right for me, absolutely not right for me. And so I've kind of spent the last 10 years finding ways of expressing myself that don't lead me down the road to burnout and don't make me feel stressed out and exhausted, and doing it in kind of a softer way. So I think it's not just finding your way of expressing yourself, but finding how you want to express that self in terms of how much of your life do you want it to take up? Do you want it to be like the all-consuming thing, or is it just like a small part?
Yeah. And you also hear a lot these days about the whole more feminine approach to marketing, which I totally get, and I'm totally with it. Beyond that, I think it doesn't have to be gendered in any way. There's some qualities that are perceived as more masculine and some as more feminine, but it's all about the balance. One's not bad, one's not better or worse. It's just about a balance between the two, because there are times for tuning in and going inside. And there are also times for action, strong, determined action. So you can't have one without the other, or you get no good results, if it's not in balance, right?
Exactly. If you're going within all the time, no one's going to know who you are or what you're doing because you're not actually expressing yourself. So
you're just going to sit on a park bench in eternal bliss and not really, which is nice, but you're not really going to accomplish much in the world sort of outside, like external stuff. I don't know. Yeah.
So you have introduced me to this concept of ikigai, and you created this really nice graphic. I love graphics like this. Yay! So tell us a little bit about what that is and how that relates to life purpose.
Well, I came across the concept maybe last year or the year before, and I'd never heard of it before, but I really love Japan and anything sort of Japanese in that way. So I looked it up, and I just really love the way that's broken down. I mean, there's graphics on Google that you can find. There used to be more on Wikipedia itself, but it's basically a sort of an overlap. You can visualize it as like, is it a Venn diagram? What do you call that kind of thing?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. It's sort of where certain things meet. So it's what you're good at. Yeah. What you love doing, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for. And then I read a little book about it going further. It's called The Japanese Secret to a Long and Happy Life. And that sort of delves into it a bit deeper and looks at what gives people their purpose. And even when people are just content with simple things and, they live to a ripe old age just because they're happy with their lives. And it doesn't mean they're wealthy necessarily financially, but they've got this inner wealth going on. And I just really love the concept of Ikigai. And I wanted to sort of explore it a bit further. So that's when I started doodling with these graphics and stuff. Yeah.
Yay. So, and I think this is really important, the way it kind of breaks it down into like what you love, what you can be paid for, what the world needs, because sometimes it can be really confusing to know whether something is meant to be a hobby, whether it's meant to be a business. And I know I have in the past, don't want to say guilty, but I have been guilty of having these things that I'm passionate about and I love, and trying to make a business out of it or trying to make money out of it. And then further down the line, after it just not working and being a struggle, realizing that it was just meant to be a hobby. Like, it's okay to just have something and enjoy it on my own and not necessarily try to do it with other people and make money out of it.
Yeah. Absolutely. And even for a short while, it doesn't have to be an ongoing hobby. It could just be like, been there, tried that, tick, done, moving on, next.
Exactly. And I think that going back to finding your own way of expressing yourself, that's probably going to change throughout your life. Or it may not. But I mean, I think plenty of people, it's a matter of refining your journey and refining your way of expressing yourself and not necessarily finding the one thing that's going to last you your entire life. Like, it's okay
that will
to change
fulfill you forever.
Yes. And you can't change it because it is the thing. Because I think that also places a lot of, it's really stressful, like trying to find the one thing that's going to be your thing for your entire life.
Yeah, that's like the way jobs used to be. I remember my dad, he changed his job once. That was unheard of, because you pick a career and you stick to it forever until you retire, that kind of thing. So it's like, kind of like we're bringing that forward into the whole purpose thing. Yeah. And I think there may be an underlying purpose that's quite general. And I think in this day and age, it might be like making a real difference in the world and maybe helping the environment. Or I think the whole making a difference or leaving a legacy, that might be a lot of people's true purpose. And then the way you express that, there's layers on top of that. So you might be really focused on the environment or making a better working environment for women or anything to do with what makes you feel fulfilled in day-to-day ongoings.
Yes. Yeah. So why is it so important for us to be aware of our ikigai or our life purpose? Why do we need to figure this out?
I think if we don't, there's always going to be a feeling of something's not quite right or there's something missing. There must be more to life, that kind of feeling, because I know I've been there. Like I was in a job. I mean, it's not like I didn't enjoy my job. I quite enjoyed my job. It was kind of similar to some of the things I'm doing now. So I'm working with design and stuff. But there was still a feeling of, there's got to be more to life than this, the 9-to-5 grind and all that. I don't know. I thought I just couldn't envision myself doing this until I was 65. I thought this is just depressing and I don't even want to think about this. So, yeah. But it's not like I then figured it out and then all of a sudden it was like, that's that sorted then. Tick. It's not the same thing, is it? It's then a matter of, it's just a journey. You just go on this journey.
It absolutely is.
It just lasts. It keeps going forever.
Exactly. Yeah. And I think it absolutely is a journey of kind of getting to know yourself and knowing, what it is that you want to be doing and how you want to do it and how you want to express yourself.
Definitely.
I mean, that's taken me the last 10 years of my life to refine.
Yeah.
Because before that, I wasn't really conscious of it. I wasn't really aware. It was like I was deeply unhappy with my first business, but making tons of money. So I felt like I was successful because,
Well, you felt like maybe you should be happy because you were making the money. Like, what else do people want? I'm successful, That's it.
Yeah, but it's not.
Why am I not happy?
I know.
Yeah.
And I think that's the same thing that happens to a lot of people in their careers where they're climbing the corporate ladder and they're super successful and they've just been focusing on those goals of getting up and up and up. And then it's like, well, I got here and now it sucks.
Yeah. I thought this was it. Now what?
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So how do we figure out what ours is? And as we've said, there's no like one answer that's going to fit your entire life. But how do you get started on this path? I mean, how did you get started on this path, for example?
I think by taking some small action, when you start thinking, there must be more to life than this, and it comes up. I think when something wants my attention, it comes up more and more all the time. And that's when I start paying attention because I know it's something that I need to pay attention to, right? Yeah, so this feeling got stronger and stronger, and I started looking into what I enjoyed as well, like where my interests were. And I had like an office job. Norwich is not a big city. I live in Norwich, and it's kind of was a corporate job, so it was for an agency. It wasn't a huge agency, but still. Although I did like what I was doing, I thought that there must be more to things, more to life. So I started exploring some more of my interests, and one of those was nutrition. So I really liked the subject of nutrition, and I also had some health issues that nutrition helped me a lot with, sort of to get through and get over. And I started looking into doing a course. So I signed up for a course and I started learning about it. It was a very demanding course, by the way. And then I had to reshuffle my life a little bit as well. I then left my full-time job to go and work in a health food store 3 days a week. Needless to say, I moved out of my flat. I had a little flat of my own that time, which I was renting. So I moved in with a friend to keep costs down and stuff. But still, I found it was not quite paying the bills. And working in retail, I found it's not really for me either. Yeah, I didn't like it.
It's hard.
There are things about it that I did like. I like the contact with people and the stuff I was learning then. And, my colleagues, they're all really nice. But all the restrictions and the rules, they have to be there for a reason. And I get that. I totally get that. But someone saying to me, okay, you can have a cup of tea at 11, I'm like, no, I want a cup of tea now. No one's going to tell me when I can have a cup of tea. Do you know what I mean? So that's when my inner rebel was like, no, not it. Moving on. Yeah. So I started going back to design work, which is what I was doing before, on a sort of freelance basis and some part-time. And I sort of juggled, I kind of yo-yoed between employed, self-employed, part-time employed, self-employed, maternity leave cover, self-employed, so I yo-yoed for ages. And I mean, it's by no means I figured it out now. That's not what I'm saying, because I haven't. But I'm figuring it out, and it feels good to fine tune and just, actually make progress. But for a long time, I was feeling like I want to accomplish all this stuff and I'm just not making any progress. I'm not getting anywhere. I'm not going where I want to go. Something's stopping. And I just felt stuck for quite a while. I just felt stuck in what I was doing. And I finally decided this whole self-employment thing was my thing. The nutrition thing was still really interesting, but I didn't really do more with it. I kind of parked it. So I thought this whole graphics, my business, self-employment, I thought, yeah, that's my thing, and sort of went into branding a little bit more and sort of fine tuning it more now. But for a while, I was just so stuck and frustrated, so incredibly frustrated for not, you look at other people as well. There's a bit of comparisonitis going on, isn't there? And you think, absolutely. But they've started this after me and they're way ahead of me. So why am I not there yet? Yeah. That kind of thing.
That's awful.
Yeah.
So what was it that got you to take that leap of faith? Because you started getting curious about other things and you quit your full-time job, which is a really scary step for a lot of people.
It is. Yeah, it was. Yeah, sort of the real world then kind of hits you, doesn't it? It's like, no, you're not really making enough money for any of this, for one, and then I think I just wanted to be in an environment where I felt, I think it's the sort of story of belonging versus fitting in. Because when I was a kid, I was bullied a lot, all that kind of stuff. And I think we do a lot to fit in, don't we?
Absolutely. I know I have.
And it's even about the whole visibility thing, because I realized I had some visibility issues. And it sort of occurred to me that, when I was bullied, obviously when you stand out, you get bullied. When you blend in, when you're invisible, you kind of get away with it, don't you? That was a big thing for me to realize as well. And I think the main thing about the whole journey was being really kind with myself. Stop feeling frustrated, comparing myself to others, thinking I should be somewhere where I'm not, and just think, no, this is my path. It's my journey. I'm exactly where I need to be, although that line did grind on me a little bit. It's like one of those affirmation things. I'm exactly where I need to be. I'm exactly where no, I'm not. That's what it was like at first.
I don't want to be here now.
No, I'm not where I want to be. Darn it. But after a while, it's like, yes, actually I am. And I know I'm not meant to be there yet because I'm really not ready for that yet, because my brain probably couldn't even cope with it if I was there, and I would just have a complete meltdown. I sort of learned to accept. There's more of a self-acceptance of where I was, making peace with where you are, that's one of those things. And also then starting to become more and more aware of my own habits, my own blocks, issues, where they came from. That's where I kind of find the expression like glass ceiling. It's a really interesting one for me, because you have to have self-awareness to know it's there. And only once you know it's there can you think, okay, I need to let this go or clear it or work beyond it and all that kind of stuff. So, So that's what started happening. I started becoming aware of some patterns that I was I procrastinate. I was the queen of procrastination. Okay. So good at it. And it took me a while to figure out, okay, this is why I do this. This is a pattern that I just repeat. And if I get overwhelmed with stuff, I just go, I stick my head in the sand a little bit and just try and ignore reality, and then just kind of do off and do something, and the shiny object syndrome as well. Sort of thinking, oh, I love this, get really enthusiastic about it, you get into it, then get overwhelmed or think, okay, it requires more work, or it does, do you know what I mean? And you get discouraged, and then to just sort of pull yourself out of it, oh, there's the next shiny thing. So it's this cycle of things that I've been repeating. So once I started noticing it, I was like, oh, okay, that's what I do, and this is why I do this. Okay. And then again, being kind with yourself, not sort of beating yourself up about it, but saying, okay, so this is how it is. So what am I going to do about it? Or just being willing, like, okay, it's not serving me. Yeah. And I really want to let this go. And that's when I started digging into all the layers a bit more. So,
yeah. So it's about like kind of paying attention to the things that draw you, I think.
Yes.
Perhaps, giving those things more space.
Absolutely.
And more attention.
Yeah, I would consider myself one of those multi-passionate people, right? So I've got lots of ideas and lots of things I want to do and explore. And so it's really hard to say, like, okay, what is really right for me? So, yeah, it's a bit of a fine line, really. And you have to really sort of tune in and kind of go inside to figure out what the next step is. I try to bring it back. So when I'm thinking of all these ideas and my brain is buzzing, it's all out there, isn't it? It's all out, external, and it's all like, woohoo! But I have to sort of sometimes bring it back, sort of bring it a bit closer to myself and think what the next step would be and just focus on that, really.
Yeah.
So that's what helps me. Yeah.
Yeah, and for me, it's also paying attention to what kinds of things I'm actually prioritizing in my life. So, like, looking over this last year, I was prioritizing kind of more physical things. Like, I was not prioritizing my business at all. Like, I was focusing on, my kickboxing, like doing my gradings, passing my gradings, my walk 1,000 miles challenge, really, really good about filling in my spreadsheet for that, doing lots of outdoors courses. Like, I was focusing on stuff that had nothing to do with my business. And I started noticing when I would do like podcast episodes where I'd be talking about like, how do I achieve my goals or how do I focus? It was all non-business related stuff. And it took me months before I finally realized, like, it's time to let go of the business and focus on something else. And that was so hard for me. It's so hard for me to kind of let go of my identities. Like, I built up this thing of I'm the business mindset person, and how do I let go of that? And it's like clinging to it, even though I know I need to let it go. And that's been a hard part of my journey as well, is kind of pivoting, shifting, focusing on the thing that I know is right and letting go of the old thing.
Yeah, and I think part of that process is whenever you find yourself, I think you tune into how you're feeling, don't you? Yeah. And if you're like, I recognize it now, if I'm going through my day and I'm just bumbling all over the place with not really much focus, I get really restless and I get this sort of feeling like, frustrated restlessness. And then I think, okay, I'm doing this thing again. So just stop. Where am I at the moment? What needs doing? Reprioritize, refocus, structure it a bit more, and then sort of approach it. Or maybe take a break, clear my head, and then just get back to it. And I think that works for a day, like approaching it for the day or the week. But also I think when you're doing stuff day to day and over a period of time, maybe you look back and you think, how is this feeling? So obviously for you were thinking there was something not right about what you were doing and you knew that something had to change. And I think once you then find your thing, it's not even like it's then easy, isn't it? Like, that's it. Great. Whew, now I can get on with it. It's kind of like you then have to, like you say, let go of the old stuff. And that can be like almost a bit of a mourning process, can't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think I'm still going through it because it's like, I've known, and I go back through my journals. I've been doing this kind of massive year review where I keep going back through my old journals. And, I can see from like a year ago that I knew I needed to focus on my writing. And it wasn't happening. I wasn't making it a priority. It wasn't just that like I thought I should focus on it, like it was what I really wanted to do deep down, but I still wasn't doing it. It was like you gotta let go of something to give yourself space to do the thing you want to do.
So what do you think made you sort of stop and say, right, this is what I really want to focus on? What made you realize that? Do you know what it was?
That's an excellent question. I think it was a kind of a culmination of things. been complaining about online marketing for like the last year and a half at least. And I just found myself realizing how fed up I was with the online business world, the coaching world. And not that there's anything inherently wrong with those things. I think it just my disgust with those things was a symbol of the fact that that's not what I was meant to be focusing on. Like I needed to focus on something else. And so it was kind of that. And then it was something that came up one morning in one of my master gut calls. So I'm on the call. And I distinctly remember which call it was because it was the week that I was with Joanna Hannon in Brussels. So we were sitting side by side on my computer and doing the call, and the other two were there. And I was saying something about, the business mindset thing. I don't know exactly what it was that I said, but I distinctly remember Cara saying to me, she looks at me and she goes, well, and how's that working for you? But like straight up, like how's that working for you? And I was like, shit, it's not. And it was one of those moments where it was like her words just like smacked me in the face and like opened my eyes, and I was like, right, it's not working. There's a reason why it's not working, and I need to be focused on something else. Like, but even after that, like it was like boom, it opened my eyes, but then there was still a process where I was like, I don't know what to do. And then it kind of finally slipped in, and that was when I realized I needed to let go of the kind of the business side of my life and focus on the writing and completely shift what I'm writing about. As I've said, I've got this piece of paper taped to my desk lamp that says #1 priority tree book. It's been there since January, and I was not making it a priority.
Oh, interesting.
So
Maybe,
not even paying attention to the signs that are like right there in front of my face, like literal signs.
But they sometimes sort of they start blending in with the environment, don't they? So maybe you need to move it to another location. Like, I'll stick it on your keyboard, like for the morning or
so
something.
it annoys me.
Shake it up a bit.
Not only that, but I'm also wondering if seeing that sign, I'm looking at it as I'm talking to you, seeing that sign every day, if that was what helped make the shift. Like maybe that helped it like slip into my subconscious in a very slow way compared to how I normally work. And that was also kind of what helped make the shift, because I've been staring at it every day for like a year practically.
So maybe it's also a matter of what you're letting go of to do this new thing, and how much resistance there maybe is to the letting go. Because if you were at a place with your business where you thought, right, it's not really working anyway, let's just let this go. And then this new thing, well, not this new thing, but, this thing that you really want to focus on comes up. It might have been a quicker shift, but obviously maybe it's also your rational mind coming in saying, no, you can't stop doing that.
Absolutely.
That's not how it works.
You've built this up for so long. How can you change? And also, it's not like I hated it. Like, I love client calls. And I always used to say this in my master gut calls. Like, I love it when I'm on the call with the client, but I hate, like, everything else. Like, I don't like the marketing. I don't like getting the clients. Like, when I'm on the call with them, I love them and I love the work that I'm doing, but I don't like all the other stuff. But it's like, you can't do just the client calls and not do all the other stuff, because I mean, I could if I were like super famous and the entire world knew who I was, but like at this point in my business, like I need to do the marketing stuff. So and there's something about marketing a book that doesn't cause that aversion that marketing my business does. I don't know. It's really, really weird. So it was also hard because I really loved a part of it, but not all of it.
That's interesting, because I'm just reminded of something that Liz Gilbert said in her interview with Marie Forleo. I think it's in her book, what is it? Big Magic. Yeah. And she says, everything you do, it comes with a shit sandwich.
Ah, yes.
Have you heard of that?
Yes.
So obviously the shit sandwich for your writing is more palatable than the one that came with your business stuff. Yeah. I think in that way, right?
Yes.
I love that concept. That. It's hilarious. Yeah, I hope I can say shit.
Yeah, you can.
Okay, no good. I thought I could. I've been listening to a few of these, so I think I'm good with that, with the sandwich. Yeah.
You're good with the sandwich.
I'm good with the sandwich. Yeah.
So once we know what this thing is, how we're going to express it, or how we want to express it in the world, how we want to express ourselves, like, what do we do with this? How do we know whether it's supposed to be a hobby or a business? Like, how do we know? Like, how do we get going on this kind of journey of discovery of how we're going to do what we're going to do with this thing? It's so nebulous. Like, it
totally is. Yeah.
And it's such a journey.
Yeah. Well, for me, speaking for myself, I think it's just going with what you're drawn to. And it's kind of like what you're saying, what you're prioritizing in your life. That's a big thing. And also you have to make the space for it though, like inner and outer, and allow yourself maybe time to play and time to discover new things. And once you've maybe tried something, you figure out, oh my God, that is it. That is how I want to do this for now, not necessarily forever, but right now, this is what I really want to do. And sometimes it's more subtle than that. You might look back and think, oh, I've been doing this for a while. And actually, this is one thing I keep doing or coming back to or prioritizing. Oh, maybe there's something there. So it is it's simple, but it's not easy, right?
Yeah. It's like making the time and space and making it a priority so that you can play with it and see, is this the right path? I think the whole playing with it is a really important concept because, again, it's not like you're going to find this thing, pick it, and it's going to be your thing for your entire life. Like, you've got to play with it to see, is that it? And you've got to give it a chance to develop or not develop. And then if it's not the right thing, then you find another thing. But you've got to be open to being flexible.
Yes.
And I think that's also a really scary thing because it's like, it's so easy to just want to find the thing.
Yeah.
Because there's so much certainty in that, but there's so little certainty in this path and in life because things are always changing and you're always growing.
Yeah. And it's like the whole concept of speaking your truth and following your bliss, as we were just talking about. That kind of makes it sound like, okay, you just figure that out.
Yeah.
And once you've done that, that is it. Everything will be easy and super fun and you'll never work another day in your life and all that stuff. Well, I think we can agree that that's not quite how it works.
No, and I think it gives the wrong impression to people.
It does.
It's like you always hear, like, do what you love and the money will follow. And it's like so tempting to want to believe that because it sounds so easy and beautiful.
It is tempting. Yeah. And I've sort of signed up to that as well, thinking, oh, yeah. Yes, please. That's what I want. Yes, thank you. And you look at other people who are, living the life and doing the thing. And you're like, yeah, I do that.
And it looks effortless when you see someone else do it.
Yeah.
But you don't see all the stuff that went on behind the background.
Exactly.
That they did to get to where they are. And I think that's the thing that's also important is don't compare your beginning to someone else's middle or advanced phase.
Yes, I love that. Yeah, absolutely.
Because you never know what they've done. You never know where they are on their path. You never know the stuff that went on before what you're seeing now. So this whole process involves so much self-awareness. And I think that's probably why I made some really bad decisions early on in my life because I wasn't necessarily very self-aware. And I feel like I've really, like the last 10 years of my life have really been getting to know myself and getting to know what and who I'm growing into. And it's been a massive journey of self-awareness, but I wasn't like that at all for the first, 35 years of my life.
Neither was I.
So how did you get started on that path of self-awareness?
Well, I think it's just this, I don't know if it's like inner guidance sort of poking me along the way. And it's like it keeps just poking harder and harder until it has your attention, right? Because I think, kids, especially young kids, they're so tuned in and they're full of life and wonder and all that. And then it all gets conditioned out of them, really, doesn't it? And then they spend the rest of their lives when they're grown ups trying to get it back. That's really kind of how I see it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well-meaning adults and all that. It's all good. It's just how it is. No blame or anything. But yeah, so I think for me, just something inside was just poking until I paid attention. And I feel like I've never really fitted in anyway.
Yeah.
It's like this. I think when as a kid, I wanted to belong, but I confused that for trying to fit in, wanting to fit in. And I thought that was the same thing. Yeah. But it really wasn't. And now I feel like I'm really just sort of grateful to the internet because I've actually met like-minded people, online and via Facebook especially, that I would not have normally met otherwise.
Yeah.
And I feel like I do have the entrepreneurial spirit, but I'm not a natural sort of outgoing, extroverted, entrepreneurial leader type person. I'm an introvert. I'm a highly sensitive person, empath, all that. And I think it's also been a matter of discovering, self-discovery versus self-creation. So you've got the whole law of attraction thing. We create our own reality, which I absolutely believe.
Yeah.
And I feel like the other side of the yin and yang thing is about discovering who am I? What do I want? What do I need? What lights me up? What do I not like? It works in all areas of your life, like in business, but also in relationships. What kind of person do I want to be with? what kind of person do I want to be in this relationship? So it works like in perfect harmony with each other, and the path it keeps sort of spiraling, I think.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
So can I ask a question? How does what you're doing now, or how does your life now relate to the things that you were really passionate about as a kid? Because I've found that, for example, I wrote my first books when I was 7. Like I wrote a whole series of books when I was 7. I was an insatiable reader. Like I couldn't get enough books. But then I kind of went away from that because of low self-esteem, low self-confidence, life crap. And then now it's like I've kind of come back to that. So are there any parallels between stuff that you were really into as a kid and what you're doing now?
Yes, I think so. I always used to like to doodle and draw, like arty, crafty things. I did a lot of that just because I felt like it.
Yeah.
And one of the things I did was I used to have all these beads and things because I like to make earrings and stuff like that. And I had these boxes of them with all these different compartments in it with all the different colors and shapes.
Yeah.
What I used to do as a kid is I threw them all together in the lid and then give them a good shake.
Wow.
And then I would spend hours sorting them all out again by shape and color. That was what I did for relaxation. Seriously.
Wow.
Probably OCD, but there you go. So I really enjoyed that. There was stuff I was usually on my own as well, rather than playing with kids. I was in my room doing either that or reading or something like that. I was very happy with my own company.
Yeah, me too.
And I used to sort of, make a lot of things and doodle and draw and stuff like that. And even some kids in my class, they would see it and like, oh, can you make me some? I was like, yeah, sure. Here you go.
Cool.
And I would do it and give it to them and stuff. So, so it kind of makes a lot of sense for me. I'm a very visual person.
Yeah.
So it would make sense that I would go in the direction of graphics. But that said, I didn't always know that as such. Although I did all these things when I was a kid. Like you, I kind of got sidetracked as I was growing up. And I went and studied electronics, of all things.
Oh, wow.
For a few years. It was quite fun, really, with the printed circuit boards and the soldering and stuff. But I mean, that all changed so fast. And there's none of that going on now. But it was kind of, I think I was sort of trying to do what I felt my dad wanted me to do for a while. Yeah. There was a bit of that going on. And I don't see it as a waste of time or anything. It was very, it was interesting and I learned a lot. And the main thing I learned was that's not for me. Okay, so I'm moving on now. Thank you. So, it was all part of the journey, really. Yeah.
So, as you said earlier, this is kind of a journey of self-discovery and self-creation. Mm-hmm. And those seem like two kind of opposing concepts, but it absolutely is. It's like I always say with kind of my journey, I always say it's combining practical action and mindset. You take one step with the practical action and one step with the mindset work. And it's kind of like this with self-discovery and self-creation, because at the same time, you're like increasing your self-awareness, getting to know yourself, who you really are deep down, peeling off the layers of crap that you've put on throughout your life. But at the same time, you're creating the self that you want to be by creating your reality. So how do you balance this? How do you personally balance this?
Well, that's a good question. Sort of one step at a time. Like,
exactly.
Ta-da! Simple. Yeah, the self-awareness thing is a big thing. So I just keep being open. Mm-hmm. I think it's just a matter of being open. Like what is going on for me right now? If I don't feel happy with something, why is that? And, it takes things like even listening to your podcast, I get a lot of like, oh my God, yes, that kind of moment, aha moment, not the other kind of, oh my God, yes. That's a different podcast. So the self-awareness thing and then how you express that. So I doodled a bit more. So there's a self-discovery and self-creation, and that's intertwined with the self-awareness and the self-expression. So I think that's a beautiful cycle and I think if you get stuck in one too long, it all gets out of whack. So it's important to just keep moving through that flow of like, what makes me tick, and then, but you can get a bit stuck in your head and then it's like, okay, now just moving on. How do I want my life to be? And then sometimes you get a bit stuck in that and you get all off with the fairies and then you have to maybe come back down and say, okay, what can I do right now that is going to bring me closer to that? And then you've got the self-awareness switching on. And then the self-expression, it's like, oh, I want to do this or create that or put that out into the world. I'm going to try that. So to me, it's a wonderful flow of things. In theory, in practice, it's not always that easy, though. It's not like, oh, yeah, that's easy. Not really. But that's the general plan that I kind of work with. Yeah.
I think for me, I love journaling. I love other people's journal prompts. Like I love coming across things where you have a list of questions and you're like, oh, because that kind of stuff, asking myself those questions really helps me to get to know myself and where I am. And then for me, the self-creation is all about the mindset work I do. Like every time I realize Like this weekend, I've got my kickboxing grading, and I'm actually really scared of it. Like I did the summer course over the summer. I did really well, but I wasn't grading on it, and I'm really nervous about this weekend. So I've been doing some belief work. I've been doing some mindset stuff on it. And so for me, it's the kind of the combination of like creating my reality by taking action and creating the mind I need to have, or the beliefs I need to have to do that action. And realizing what my blocks and fears are. So maybe this is time for us to move on to blocks. Like, as we've discovered who we are and how we want to express ourselves in the world, we eventually hit some blocks and fears and crap. So how do you see this? Like, what's been your experience with this? What are blocks? Like, how did that come up for you?
Well, for me, like I said, I was trying to sort of, I had this idea of kind of what I wanted my business to be, or what kind of business I wanted. And I really love the idea of like a lifestyle business. You know, that's kind of the concept, isn't it? Like a business that works around my life, not the other way around. That gives me plenty of freedom. And it's about defining what success means for you and all that. So I kind of had this idea. It was a very vague idea, to be fair, looking back now, hindsight. But I was doing all the things. So that was all the practical stuff, the strategy stuff, the processes, the systems, the productivity, trying to do all the things. And I found that I was doing, and spending a lot of time doing, and I was not making any progress. Part of the cycle was the whole procrastination thing, which I later sort of became aware of. And that's when I became sort of familiar with the concept of mindset, through you and some other sources as well. And, we've done the lovely heart-centered energy work together as well. Yeah. So, the mindset for me was like, oh my God, yeah, that's it. Is if I have limiting beliefs, or if I believe on some level that I'm not good enough, or that that's not possible, or whatever it is, then I'm just going to get in my own way, and nothing's ever going to change. So that was like, boom, mind blown, So started working on that. And I feel like more recently, though, I feel like it's not like I've discovered another level, but there's just another deeper level to it as well. It kind of all intertwines and it interlinks and it overlaps with mindset. And for you, I think, the heart-centered energy work is probably a lovely combination of the two things together, which is the mindset and the energetic level, sort of all the stuff that's underneath it. And so I started doing some more energy work as well. Like I said, I've worked with yourself and with the lady who does the chakra balancings and things like that. And I do Reiki myself as well. And so just a nice variety of stuff. I love trying stuff out anyway. Yes. So, and that's been really insightful. And I feel like it's just chipping away, and it started chipping away at all these, all these blocks and stuff. And even whether you believe in karma or ancestral stuff, doesn't really matter. But if you feel like I felt drawn to trying something, so that's what I did. And I did feel like it made a difference, because it's always, I find even the energetic stuff is when you work with a practitioner, you do communicate, you talk about stuff and you become aware of things. So they can see into your energy field. I think we all can, but, sometimes we're a bit more blocked than other times. And some people do it more naturally than others, right? So this lady was seeing all these things and it was like, wow, that's amazing. So we worked to clear it, and sometimes I helped, mostly she did it all. And it's just, it has started, I think, all the different things that I've been doing. So I think rather than focusing on just one thing, like doing all the, strategy and, getting a coach and getting a structure in place and all that stuff, that's great. Obviously you need that as well. But if that's all the stuff you're doing, if that's the only thing you're doing and you're still feeling stuck, then obviously there is more going on. Yeah. So there's the mindset and then the energy level. It's kind of, I've seen it as a triangle as well. Yeah. So strategy, mindset, and energetic. Yeah. And then I thought, okay, there's another element to this as well. So I can make the full Ikigai, 4-element system, which is kind of looking after your body, sort of just making sure you eat well, you get enough rest and sleep. Yeah. Exercise too. Just looking after, like the internal and the external, and balancing the practical with the physical. So that's kind of how I see it, and sort of seeing it in that way helps me to keep the balance and to break it down, and I can then recognize, oh God, I'm too much in the strategy stuff and then the doing. Wow, okay, I need to just put the brakes on and think, is there anything in my mindset that I need to sort of clear, or maybe I need to just balance myself a bit more energetically, maybe I need to look after my body and go for a walk, that kind of stuff. So that's how I broke it down. Yeah.
I think that's so interesting, because I don't think that a lot of us, and I don't think before today, so many things just fell into place as you were saying, speaking just now, because I think I come from a very doing place. I think, my first business was all about strategy, doing. And then I moved into the mindset, and it was all about like changing my beliefs to let clear, the limiting beliefs and the fears and the blocks and all that stuff. And then with the heart-centered energy work, I got kind of more into the energetic side of things. And I feel like this year has been very much about the body. Because of my thyroid problems, I was struggling with weight for the longest time. I was struggling with energy levels, and I felt like crap, and I felt limited by my body. I felt like my body was holding me back from doing a lot of the things that I wanted to do, which had a lot to do with being active and really enjoying my longer walks and doing my national trails and doing my kickboxing. I just felt really limited. And this year has been about doing the Walk 1,000 Miles Challenge again, going further with the kickboxing with the advanced gradings, doing the outdoors classes, and putting myself in groups where, like, a lot of the classes I've done this year have been, like, all men and me. And so that's been outside of my comfort zone, because I was always afraid I would be, like, the slow, woman who's overweight and, like, can't keep up with the group. And that never happened. But, it was always a fear of mine. And then finally, it was like I found the way of eating that worked for me, and not only helped me to lose weight this year, but gave me so much energy. Yeah. And so that's been a massive shift for me. So I feel like this year, that last piece of the puzzle clicked. I went from strategy to mindset to energy to body. And I feel like my body's now kind of getting on track with everything. Yeah. And it really is an important piece of the puzzle, because I feel like now I can do so much more. And because my body's feeling good, it's healthy, it's doing well. And I think a lot of times we forget about that.
Totally. And I think it's really good what you're actually saying about the energy level, in a way of not the energetic level, but your physical energy and your mind energy. Yeah. Because I found that when you have, for example, mindset blocks, it takes so much energy to keep all that crap in place and to deal with it, and the whole cycle that I was in, like the procrastination, like feeling overwhelmed, shiny object, yay, overwhelmed, and just all that stuff. It takes so much energy. Yes. And you might think, even when you're in that stage, it's kind of a vicious cycle, I find, because I maybe part of my thinking, subconscious thinking, was, oh my God, I feel overwhelmed already. If I get more clients, how am I going to cope? Yes. I don't have the energy as it is, that kind of stuff. But we don't realize that once you clear all that crap out, you actually have more energy to do the stuff that you really want to do. Yeah. And I found that was really sort of a big aha moment for me. So,
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think it's kind of a very important piece of the puzzle that we don't always look at. So,
woohoo!
Yay! So I feel like we've done a lot of talking for the last 52 minutes.
We have. Oh, has it been that long? Wow,
yeah,
we've done well.
Yes. So I feel like we've done a really good job of kind of digging into this topic. And I think it's so important for us to find out how we want to express ourselves in the world, and kind of stop looking at it as, what do I want my business to be? What do I want my career to be? How do I want to make money? But like, how do I want to express myself in the world? What is my legacy that I want to leave? How do I want to change things in this world based on my message?
Yeah, and how do you want to be remembered in a way? Yeah, that's a bit external, but I think it's on everyone's mind, really, isn't it? On some level, it matters. It does.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah.
Good. Cool. Well, thank you for joining me for this conversation.
Oh, thank you for having me. I was really looking forward to this conversation. Yay.
Yes. All right. Well, if you have any questions, I will include all of Esther's links and stuff in the show notes, so you can get in touch with her. You know where to find me. That will be in the show notes as well. And please let us know if you have any questions, or if there's any comments that you have about this topic, or anything that you'd like to add. I always look forward to receiving feedback from listeners. So thank you.
That's all for now. I hope you found that conversation interesting and useful. As always, I welcome your feedback. Feel free to drop me a line at holly@hollywharton.com and get in touch and let me know what you thought. I would also love for you to join me on Patreon. A lot of times we kind of discuss the episodes. I discuss things that are going on for me, talk about things that I don't talk about on my blog or on social media or at other parts. And it's a good kind of place for us to explore this concept of going into the woods of our being and getting to know ourselves and this own journey of, self-discovery that we're all on. So if you would like to join me there, if you head over to patreon.com/Holly Wharton, you can join me there. Membership starts at just $1 a month. And like I said, you'll get exclusive access to stuff that I don't share anywhere else. So I would love to see you in there. Thank you again for listening. Thank you so much. And tune back next week for another solo episode. This time it will be a solo episode. And remember to visit hollywharton.com/284 for the show notes on this episode. Happy New Year. Happy 2019. And I wish you the best of luck on your journey into your own personal woods this year. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Thanks so much for listening to Into the Woods with Holly Wharton. You can find more information about today's episode, including links for topics that were discussed, at hollywharton.com. That's HOLLYWORTON.com. If you'd like to connect with other listeners and get support on your journey, I would love for you to join my private community on Patreon. That's patreon.com/Holly Wharton. That's patreon.com/Holly Wharton. Thank you so much for listening, and I look forward to seeing you next week.